All right, the first place we're going to start today for our in-product demo is on this account landing page where we can see all of our project cards. The first thing that we want to do is go to this Get the Add-in link up here, select that, and it will take us to these resources for Assemble Systems. So last week we downloaded the Revit and the Navisworks add-ins. Today the add-ins that we're going to be working with are this Power BI add-in up here, Class Editor, and Excel. All right, so those are the three that we want to download. I'm going to go back over here to my account landing page, and I'm going to search for the project that we're going to be working in today. So here I am at Seacrest Place. This is my demo project. You can see that this is linked to a BIM 360 account. So as we went over last week, we can publish linked files into the Assemble project, and we can also publish out issues from Assemble as well. We're not going to touch on that today, but I always like to point that out since it's a really cool feature within the BIM 360 and Assemble integration. All right, so I'm going to select Seacrest Place here. And the first workflow that I want to go over with everyone is starting to assign out our models into organized bid packages. So in our MEP model here, we've got a lot of information. We've got a lot of objects, and we probably have some stuff that's coming from different contractors, right? So we've got, I can see just duct here, some equipment. I suspect there's some piping. If I go into my inventory here, I can see there's some piping. If I dive even into my piping, I can see that there's some fire sprinkler pipe, and there's probably some hydronic piping in here as well. So the first thing I want to do here is start to assign the things in this model out to those bid packages. So I can do that pretty easily here. There's some pretty straightforward ones. I know my air terminals, my duct, any of my duct, and my mechanical equipment is all going to be my HVAC duct bid package, so I can select them easily here and go over to my Properties tab. And within my Properties tab, I can assign this to an HVAC duct bid package. So I just type this in as HVAC duct and say this add HVAC duct, go down to the bottom, click Save, and now that is assigned to the HVAC duct. I can also come in here into my pipe and see what different pipe I've got here. So I know for one, it looks like I've got sprinkler pipe, so I can easily select that and assign that to the fire protection package here. Click Save. I can see that a bunch of this pipe is plumbing, so I've got my domestic water, my waste and vent, sanitary vent, some storm piping, and then also this standard here. So since I don't really know what this standard is, I want to dive into this a little bit more, get some information. I suspect this is my HVAC piping, but just to be sure, let's go into an instance here and go down to my properties and see what my classification is. And that's confirmed. So if I go to my system classification here, I can see that this is my hydronic piping. So then I can select all of these objects here, and I can assign this out to my HVAC bid package, or my HVAC pipe bid package, and then save. Then by doing that, I know the rest of this piping here is my plumbing. So I'm going to select my pipe fittings, type domestic water, waste and vent, my storm. I've already assigned the fire protection piping and the hydronic piping, so I'm not going to do that, but I am going to lump in my plumbing fixtures with my plumbing bid package. So once I've selected that, come back over here to my properties. And as this is loading, you can see how it's all selected here. As we went over last week, the 3D viewer, as well as the inventory and the model viewer or the model tree, are all going to highlight the items that you've selected respectively when you're working in any of these three areas. Okay, so now that that's loaded up, I'm going to go to my bid package here, and I'm going to just call this my plumbing. I'm going to add that, save it. So now everything in my model here, in my MEP model, should be assigned out to a bid package. So the next thing I want to do, just to help me visualize this a little bit better, is I'm going to go into my 3D viewer here and over to the color by property, which we touched on last week as well. I'm going to say, yes, I do want a color by property, but I don't want to do this by category name. Instead, I want to do this by bid package. Select my bid package here, and you can see the way that this is colored out. That makes sense to me. My fire protection is red, duct is blue, HVAC is green, yellow. Everyone's got their own coloring conventions, but this works for me. And I can easily visualize here what goes with what package. So in this view in particular, I can see there's some fire sprinkler piping, there's some plumbing piping, there's some HVAC piping, and also my ductwork. The next thing I want to do is I want to make my inventory reflect this bid packaging organization work that I've done. So what I'm going to do that is go over to my groupings here, and I'm going to change my grouping from by category to group by bid package. So if I go down to bid package here, I can say I want to go to bid package. And then I also want to see what else I've got here in my bid package. So I'm going to edit bid package and see that it's going to be the first level of hierarchy is bid package, second is category name, third is then level. Okay, so that works for me. So I'm going to save that. And I can also click into here and make sure that that is the way that it is organized. And that looks like that is the case, which is nice. Cool. Okay. So the next thing I can do here is I can export this out to Excel. So if I go up here to the top right of the inventory, I can export this out, export to Microsoft Excel. I do want to include instances. I want to name this. Actually, before I do that, I want to create a view here. So I'm going to go back. And right up here at the top near the project name, as this name is currently the untitled view, I'm going to rename this to colored by bid package. Say done. So now I've got this view. So I can actually save this view. I've saved this view into this project, and I can then import that view into other projects so that other estimators or pre-con professionals can use a similar setup that I have here on other projects, so they don't have to do the work. So to export this to Excel, just go up here, export to Microsoft Excel. Now it's got my project name, it's got my view name, and a little bit of the date information. I do want to include instances, so I'm going to leave that checked, and I'm just going to select export here. Just save this to my desktop for simplicity. And then I'm going to open this up. All right, so now I can see all that information that I had in my inventory in Assemble is now available here in Excel. As we went over last week, we could have removed or added any of these columns. We can also input information into these columns here in Excel and re-import them into Assemble to quickly and easily update property information in Assemble. Also some navigation stuff over here. When I export all the instances to Excel, I can also take these groupings and I can bring them to their lowest or highest level of hierarchy. So I can see all the information, or I can see some of it at whatever level of detail I want, which is really great. All right, so let's move back into our project here. The next thing we're going to do here is we're going to actually demo the Excel integration. So I do this after I show this export only because I want to point out that this is sort of an advanced functionality here. That import export is pretty straightforward, but when you download the add-in, what you can do is you can start to actually build out mapping between your existing bid sheets and your Assemble projects. So I'm going to go back here into the main project here. And instead of using the mechanical project this time, I'm actually going to use the architectural project. So I'm going to go into the architectural project here. And what I want to do with this architectural project or this architectural model that I've got up is I want to isolate my doors, and then I want to sort them by type mark, so then I can associate costs with them and map the cells, the quantity cells here in Assemble into an existing budget sheet. So I've got an example budget sheet that I will bring up real quick just to point out. So this is just a very, very basic budget sheet from a bid book. What we're going to do is we're going to actually map these quantity cells into Assemble here. So as the quantities change in Assemble, they then are automatically fed into Excel. All right, so back here in Assemble, the first thing I want to do is I want to create a view just for my doors. So this one's pretty straightforward, but we did go over creating views in a little bit more detail last week. As I said then, I'll say it again, this is sort of the core functionality of BIM 360, or BIM 360, pardon me, Assemble. So as you're going through and getting used to using Assemble, this is probably the one thing that's the most important as you're learning to use it. So what I want to do is I just want to show doors. So in order to do that, I go over here to my model tree, and I'm going to go to visibility settings, and I'm going to create a view under this architectural model just by saying add Seacrest Place architectural rule. This one is pretty straightforward because basically all I want to do is show all of the doors and nothing else. So in order to do that, I'm going to set this so it says show only category name, and then I'm just going to, I can either select or type it in. So I'm going to select it there. And as soon as I say update, it's going to filter everything out of the model except for my doors. So now I've got all my doors here. Again, I can color these by property. So if I want to look at these a little differently, I can come up here and I can say, I actually want to see these by level. Let's see here, go to, and then they're colored by level. I can also turn that off and just look at them as normal. So for this particular exercise, since my bid sheet has these doors broken out by type mark, I also want to break those out by type mark in Assemble. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change this group by up at the top. I am going to find type mark. So if type mark isn't already here, we could create a new grouping, but it is, so I'm just going to select that. And as soon as I do that, you can see the doors are now broken out by type mark. So I've got the name, and I've also got the quantity here. Before I link this to Excel, I want to show some of the basic functionality that you can use for estimating here in Assemble itself. To do that, I'm just going to select one of these doors, for example. Let's just go to this one here. And I'm going to go over to the Properties tab. And within Assemble here, we have this unit cost and total cost. So this will come basic as one of your Assemble properties. It's not shown here on my columns, but I can add that in. If I go into this unit cost, you can see here there's 2 doors. There's a quantity of 2 doors. If I say this quantity of doors, these are $200 a piece, it's automatically going to populate then that total cost at 400. So since there's 2 doors, it's multiplying that by 200, and now we have 400. So we've got a little bit of information here. So you can do this here to get a little basic material costing done in Assemble. If I save that, I can also come into my columns here, and I can say it's important for me to see that cost. So up in my columns, I'm going to add some information in. Since I'm talking about doors, count's really important. Area isn't quite as important. Volume's not quite as important. Perimeter, I'm going to get rid of some of this stuff. And I'm just going to add in maybe I'll leave my height in there. And I get rid of that. And depth. But I do now want my unit cost and my total cost. So now I've got that information here in my inventory. I close this out. I can see that for those doors that I have put in unit cost into Assemble, it's doing the math here. So since this type mark F door is $200 a piece, it's $1,600. These are just some unit costs that I put in previously. All right, Now we're going to actually start to tie these quantity columns to Excel. So to do that, I have that Excel sheet that I showed before. I'm going to pull that up. And if I pull that up here, the first thing I want to do in Excel to connect Excel to my project here is select any empty cell within Excel here. In this case, I've already started the process, but you can see here where I've got Assemble Connection. If I go up to Assemble at the top of the ribbon here, and once you've downloaded the add-in, you'll get this Assemble tab up top here. If I go to that, first thing I want to do is select the cell and select Locate Connection. So once I do that, it basically is going to give me an area that I can start to connect Excel and Assemble to, or a file that I can connect Excel and Assemble to. So once I've selected that cell and located the connection, I'm going to configure the connection. And by configuring the connection, it's going to bring up this connection page. So I want to use the URL, the account URL. And once I've done that, it will I'll select connect, and then it will bring up all the projects within my account. So then I can select all the different projects that I'm working with. In this case, it's Seacrest Place, so I'm going to select that. You can use either a view or a model. I'm going to use the model. Let's cancel that out. Try that one more time. All right, so there was a little bit of a technical issue there, but I've got this running now. So now that we've got the configure connection window working properly, here is where you type in your URL. Once you've typed in your URL to your account, just select connect. Once you've done that, it'll bring up your entire project list, so then you can select the project that you want to connect your bid sheet to. You can choose view or model. Seacrest Place architectural model is the one I've chosen, and then I'm also going to choose the latest version here. So then I select OK, and now we've connected this Excel sheet to the Assemble project Seacrest Place. So next what we want to do is I actually want to use this type mark here to start to map the quantities from Assemble to Excel. So if I click into this cell here, I can go to map quantities up here, and I want to map the quantity property I want. Since this is doors, is going to be count. So I will do count for that. Obviously, if you're using another type of material, it could be lineal footage or cubic yardage or whatever. For this particular property, I'm using count. And I'm going to filter this property by type mark. As I said before, that's sort of the identifier for the doors in this particular model. So I'll say type mark. And then that's going to bring up all the type marks related to this architectural model. What I want to do is I just want to select C, since that is the type mark for this particular door, and select add. I can basically do the same thing for any of these. So down here for D, I go and I map this quantity. Again, I'm going to do count. I can do this by type mark, and if I type in T, it will bring up all the T's. So go type mark, and then that single flush 36 by 84, the type mark is D. So I just want to find D here. Am I overlooking it? That one's not showing. Let me try another one here. Let's just do this one right here. Map quantity. Quantity property is going to be count. Again, type mark here, and then I'm talking about type mark B. So we'll do that and save. So once I've got these in, this is just a couple now. Obviously, you can do these for all of these cells here. I just go up here to the top to calculate quantities. Select calculate quantities, and it's going to take that information from Assemble, and it's going to drop it right in here. So I can see if I now go into Assemble here, I can see that that type B door has 2. And what was the other one I was looking at? Type C and B both have 2 here. Let's do another one just to drive that point home a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to do the type W here. So let's go to that one here. I'm going to map the quantity. The quantity property I'm going to use is count. Again, the filter property is going to be type mark. I add the W in. And save. Now that I've got that, calculate the quantity. And 18 there. Let's see what we've got in assemble for the W door, type mark W door, we have 18. So that works. So the Excel Connect can be a great way that you can use your existing bid sheets to take quantities out of assemble so you can add in, so if your existing bid sheets then have labor associated with this material, you can use the quantity takeoffs that you know are exact and updated every time the model changes. You can use those quantities to drive faster workflows within your bid phase and budget phase. Okay, so the next thing here we are going to show is the class editor, which is the third and final item that I pointed out within the add-ins. So what I'm going to do here to start that off, I'm actually going to go back into my project, and I'm going to leave this. I'm going to go back into my project, and I'm going to bring up the structural model. All right, and actually here in the structural model, to work with class editor, the first step of working with class editor is that you want to be using a view. So I'm just going to create a very, very simple view here. So let's see here, this looks like this is all my concrete. What I'm going to do is just create, since this is structural, all of this is my structural concrete, I'm going to create a view that is just structural concrete here. And this is an important point that I'll make a couple times. When you're working with class editor, you want to be working off of views. Okay, so now we've created that structural concrete view. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open class editor. So class editor is a desktop tool that you can download from the add-ins page. When you bring it up here, the first thing you want to do is go to File and Open Assemble right here. This Open Assemble Class Editor file is how you can open existing class editor files. I'll show you how to save them after we create this formula here. So first, we want to connect to our site again. Pretty straightforward with the Assemble add-ins here. So we're going to connect using the Autodesk. We're going to keep going on that. And once we connect, it's again going to give us an opportunity to pull up the project that we're working with. So we're going to go to Seacrest since that's our demo project today. And we're going to select that. And then here's where you have to select the view. So I want to do the structural concrete view that we've created. And I'm going to open that up. So once I open up that structural concrete view, you can see that we're going to get a similar but a little bit watered down interface that we have in Assemble itself. So we've basically got our inventory here and our viewer here. What I want to do is I want to go into one of my objects here and I start to look at what I can use to start to calculate formulas off of. So what I'm going to show today is we're going to create a waste factor for the concrete on this project. So I can select an object here in the inventory, or I can also select objects down here on the viewer. So pretty similar to the Assemble web interface. Once I do that, I can go to the middle here and I can see my properties. So if I go into my properties here, I can see there's all kinds of information, all the same information that you could see in Assemble. So what I want to do is I want to use this information to start to create a waste factor. So if I come down here into some of my dimensional information, I can see this volume. So my volume is a little over 34 cubic yards. I'm going to calculate my waste factor off of that. So up here, I just select this plus add calculated property. When I do that, I want to come in here and actually create an assemble property or use an existing property. So before I create this in Class Editor, I have to have a waste factor assemble property created. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize Class Editor, and I'm going to go back and show you guys how to create that that property real quick. So I'm going to go into here, into Seacrest Place. This is something we went over in a little bit of more detail yesterday, but I'm going to go to the Edit project up here at the top right, and this is where I can start to manage my assemble properties. So I'm going to go to Manage Assemble Properties, and I'm going to go in here and create a property. So if I create a property, I can just do this here as waste factor. It looks like I've actually got a waste calculation property here, but this is how I would create it. So I've got my waste factor, and then the type is going to be a number, right? Now I'm actually not going to create this now that I'm in here and I can see that I've got this waste calculation already here. So I'm going to use that existing assemble property, but I wanted to point out to you guys how you can create the property as well, and that it's important that you need to do that before you actually go into Class Editor and start to build out your formulas. All right, so let me go back into this structural concrete view here, and I'm going to pull up my Assemble Class Editor again. So the property I'm going to use now is that waste calculation that we saw in those assemble properties. So let's find that here. These properties here, these calculated properties, are going to be your assemble properties. So some people get in here and they wonder why this list is a little shorter than within their properties here. It's because you can only calculate to these assemble properties here, or any newly created assemble property. So I'm going to select waste calculation here, and then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say I want this to round up, so that I want this to be always full dollars. Then that starts to put my formula here in the formula bar. I'm just going to highlight this parameter 1 here and go down to the property that I want to use to calculate this formula off of, and I'm going to do volume. So I select this volume field. Then I'm going to add this property to my formula. So I select that. I can see here that my equal sign is on the wrong side of the formula, so I'm just going to put that back over here. And then I'm going to say my waste factor is 15%. So if I go in here, I'm just going to do times 1.15. So that's taking the volume here in Assemble, it's rounding it up, and then it's multiplying by 15% or 115%, essentially to give me a full quantity, including waste factor. So I can check my math here just by selecting this little check calculation, and that 34 and change is 40 and change, so that seems about right to me. Now that I've created this formula and I've checked that this formula actually works, what I can also do is come in and I can add this formula to other things within Assemble. So I can add this filter here, and I can say not only do I want Assemble and Class Editor to apply this calculation to that particular object on the roof or the 5th floor, I also want to apply this to everything that is included within the category. And I'm going to include just everything that's in this concrete model. Since all of this is concrete, I'm going to say I want to include all of that. And then I'm going to run that calculation here. And you can see up at the top right of Class Editor, these gears are working. When these gears are working, I know that it's talking to Assemble and it's pushing this information into Assemble. So I'm going to minimize this here. And I'm going to go now into my Assemble viewer here. And if I go over into my properties and select an object, I now see that my waste calculation is here in Assemble. So I can see that it's now applied that to, let's get rid of this. I can see that it's applied this to all of the fields here in Assemble, which is a great way to check our work from Class Editor. The other thing with Class Editor is now that I've created a formula that I like, I can go back into it here. I've confirmed now that this is pushing it back into Assemble. And I can say, I actually am going to use this waste factor calculation on all my projects. So I can come up here and I can save this Assemble Class Editor file so that it can be used on multiple projects. So it's essentially taking this formula that I've put together and it can be applied to projects across our account. I can also add in additional calculated properties here into this class editor. So this can be really useful. The class editor in tandem with the Excel integration are great, great tools for pre-con professionals across the industry. All right, the last thing here that I want to show within Assemble specifically is the show changes functionality. Now we touched on this a little bit last week, but I want to point this out again since this can be super useful for evaluating design changes as they come in from design teams. So I'm going to go into my architectural model to show this one. And, oh, actually I want to go to a different project for this one, pardon me. So I'm going to leave this site and I'm going to go into another model in which I know there are multiple design models. So I'm going to X this out and go to this Francis Hall model that we did our demo in last week. Once I go into this Francis Hall demo, I'm going to go into the architectural. And in this architectural model, I know that there are multiple design iterations. So if I go over here into my model tree, I can see here that we're looking at version 2 in this particular set here. But if I want to compare these versions here, I can go in here and I can say there's actually 50% DD and 25%, so I say okay to confirm that those 2 iterations are there. And now I can go to show changes. And when I do that, what Assemble's going to do is it's going to automatically bring up all of the changes that have been made from that 25% DD model to the 50% DD model. And if I come down here, I can also, from the bottom, I can just see a particular set of variances. So maybe I'm not interested in the type change, so I can click that off, and then that's not there. Or I can say I just want to see what's been added. And so I can click off everything and say update, and then my inventory and my 3D viewer is only going to show what's been added. In most changes, we are looking at what's added and removed. So I select those both on, and I can see those here. I can also export these changes, so these can be exported as backup for a cost change in the design phase or during the project phase as well. All right. The final thing that I want to point out here in the demo is Power BI. So Power BI is the third add-in that we talked about in the resources add-ins that everyone should be downloading. So I'm going to bring this page up, and Power BI, I want to point out that this is probably a training in and of itself. So Power BI is probably another hour or 2 long training itself, but it is a Microsoft tool. So many of our customers are becoming very proficient in it on their own, even beyond what we can do. But I do want to point out that when you download that Power BI connector, you get this, you get a couple of basically templates that come with it. This is the single project template. The other one is a multi-project template. But Power BI can be a really, really powerful tool for taking the information that you've got in Assemble or any other tool you're using, for example, and get it into some great visual, visual displays so that they can be displayed and demonstrated to people in sort of a different way. So with the project-specific template that you get with that Power BI download, you get this overview page. You also get a detailed view page. And then you've got variants. This can be used for design variants, which can be great to compare versions So in this case, we're comparing a couple different versions, and then also project progress. So there's some really, really awesome functionality here with Power BI. If it's something that your company is interested in getting a little bit more information on, we've got some great resources, some videos on the Assemble resources page, and also some videos that you can just find on our YouTube channel as well. All right, so that is the conclusion of our in-product demo today.